Hello and welcome to Heavy Metal Rex. My name is Oasis, and today I am on location in Iowa. And you're probably wondering, what the hell am I doing in Iowa? Well, besides the fact that it is the land of corn and ethanol, from what I'm finding out, I'm actually here at Paragon Performance. This is where Graham, my tuner, and some of you guys also use him as a tuner as well for my WRX, is actually stationed right here. So this is actually where he does a lot of his tuning. They do all kinds of other stuff too. They have like Corvettes, they have his GR Corolla, and he's actually doing some stuff with I think the F-150 Raptor as well. I mean, he does tons and tons of stuff, and I'm really excited to be here because he has been an incredible wealth of knowledge for the channel, especially when it comes to the different tuner talks. And we've talked a few times about doing a live tuner talk, and I thought, what better way than to just come down here and see it myself? So we're actually going to take a look around the shop. It's all really cool stuff because they do a combination of just, like, they do tuning, they do parts development, and they actually do some installations. They actually have a garage where they can do some stuff. They've got a couple of cool Corvettes sitting up there as well. And I don't know if you can hear in the background, but Graham is actually running another Corvette on the dyno, which they also have this really cool dyno. But I'm going to let him tell you everything about this place. So just kind of walking around here, seeing just the outside. What's really cool about Graham is obviously he does more than just VBWRXs as well. I mean, he's got such a pedigree when it comes to tuning. He does really cool development stuff these days on things like this, these C8 Corvettes, which this is a crazy thing for me because I don't think I've ever even driven a single Corvette in my life. And right now he's actually in this dyno back here, which is a very cool dyno cell that's inside the building. And he was actually explaining to me all the different things that make this particular dyno special. And we're gonna go in there and he's gonna tell us all about it because it is really cool.
All right, so I was talking about that dyno cell, so we're going to take a look at Graham and see what he's doing. What's going on, Graham?
How we doing?
Pretty good, man. Thanks so much for having me out here.
No, you're welcome. Thanks for stopping by.
Yeah, man. So tell me, okay, I've been talking about this dyno room, and you've been telling me about this for some time as well. Kind of give us an idea, like, what is all this? Because we've seen this in the SubiSpeed video a couple of months ago, and I thought it was really cool. So you want to kind of tell us about this place?
Absolutely. So when we built the building here, we had the luxury of being able to do everything from the ground up. So we had a pit poured for the dyno for the dyno jet, so it can be in ground. So it's a four-wheel drive linked dyno jet with eddy brakes on it, which means we can do load-based testing and tuning, which is very cool. And then additionally, we did this modular dyno cell that we basically built around it. So this room that we're in is basically a room inside of the building that is on top of the dyno. And it came on something like 3 or 4 semi-trucks, and we had to put it all together, which was definitely not a fun experience. These panels are pretty heavy, but essentially what you've got here is you've got steel panels with fiberglass inside of them, so it's all sound deadening. Even though the windows over there on that side, which we wanted to have so you could kind of have a nice view into the room, those are basically safety glass on both sides, and they deaden the sound as well. So when we close the room up and we run a car in here, it can be as loud as it needs to be, and the neighbors, the houses near us, nobody has any idea. We keep the sound down. That was a requirement. That's something we had to do for the city out here, of course, but it is also nice because I can have employees on the phone, I can have customers in the shop getting their installation done, and it's not loud and you don't smell the exhaust because all of that gets extracted out of the roof here. So sitting on top of the dyno are two 24,000 CFM fans that change out the air in the room a significant times per minute. I forget exactly what the number is. But essentially what happens here is these fans are drawing out all of the heat and all of the exhaust in the back of the car, taking it outside and then replacing it with fresh air from the duct in the front. So it's not blowing the air in, it's extracting it out, which is important because that ensures you've always got fresh air at the front of the car coming into the engine and your exhaust is leaving out the back. So that's kind of how that all works.
It is actually pretty cool. I was actually walking around. I recorded a bunch of stuff of what it looks like on the outside. It's definitely a unique spot. I've never been in anything like this, but I've always seen the videos for this. So you mentioned a couple of things, you know, your employees and stuff like that. And now, you know, obviously you're Booster Performance, but then you're also Paragon Performance. So let's go sit down and I want to know more about that.
Okay, sure.
That's pretty loud. And that room is has like panels to reduce the sound coming outside, and it's still that loud. Now that we're here, I've been walking around this facility for some time. Like since yesterday, I've just been walking around, just hanging out, talking to everybody. And it's called Paragon Performance, but obviously I've known you as Boosted Performance. So like, tell me more about this connection.
Sure, certainly. So Boosted Performance is the tuning business that basically started about 2010, 2011. It's kind of a part-time thing. I think we've covered that in some of our other talks, but I'll just do a refresher. But around 2010, 2011 is when I really kind of launched it and was ready to start tuning for other people. And it became a full-time business in 2016. So I've been doing it full-time since then. So Boosted Performance is just myself and then my wife, Kim. Eventually, she joined in about 2016 because I was just getting overwhelmed with trying to keep up on, you know, the support, the emails, the consulting. And at this point, her and I run this together as pretty much putting in full-time hours, you know. So we lived in Chicago for a few years. Basically, once we went full-time in 2016, we moved to Chicago in 2017. We were partnered up with Six Star Motorsports out there, who you visited.
Yeah.
They needed a good in-house tuner. So we actually just decided to move out there and really grow the business, help them grow, and just have a good partnership in person. And that went great. We really enjoyed that. At the end of, basically at the beginning of 2020, around COVID times, we were ready to come back home and kind of hit the reset button. And a good friend of ours, Jeremy, approached us. Jeremy had formerly started FT86 Speed Factory for the FRS, and then Soupy Speed, which is still, you know, a company that you're aware of. And he sold those companies around 2017, and he approached us and said, I have an idea. Let's start another company. Let's focus more on performance development. You know, we'll do the parts, we'll do the wheels, we'll do all the look and feel stuff, but we'll develop more parts and we'll do performance and packages and installations and tuning. And we can do a building with a dyno cell and all that. So that was speaking my language, of course. And so we said, yeah, let's do that. So we partnered with Jeremy and we created Paragon Performance that we are in now. So we are part owners of that. And basically, my role here is performance, tuning, testing, like I'm doing here in the dyno cell today. We have a company that sent us a prototype airbox and some different filters to see which combination works the best to pick up power here on our Shop Z06. So that's what I'm doing today. So we do a lot of stuff like that. We've got heads cam build going on behind me here. We have a bolt-on flex fuel C8 over next to me here. We've got a Pro Charger build coming in next week. So any of that stuff that needs to get tuned or developed, that's kind of my role here at Paragon.
Yeah, that's really interesting because like you know, of course, I've only known you as Booster Performance, and I'd always heard the Paragon name. And then when I went to Six Star, he was also telling me, Chris was like, oh yeah, you know, Graham used to tune and do stuff here. I was like, that's really interesting. Did he work here? Did he work over there? But it's surprising because I didn't know any of this, and even more so the whole Subi Speed thing, because I know Subi Speed is here. They're in Des Moines.
Subi Speed, as
well. And so it's crazy. The more and more I do this, all the different connections that I'm seeing behind the scenes that I would have never known. But I mean, besides just doing the Subarus, you've done all different types of cars. Like, you know, you got your Corolla, you have, you know, now you have your Raptor, which you're doing some stuff on that as well. Obviously, you got these amazing Corvettes.
So you've done a little bit of everything.
Yeah. So kind of once, Subarus was the starting point, right? And being very proficient and very good with Subarus, and then having some good partners like Ecotech, we partner with them on a lot of tuning in the past and still presently. And then Six Star Motorsports still presently tuned for them. I was literally just there in Chicago last week, did like 20, I think we did 20 cars on the dyno last week for them that they all put together. There 5 or 6 of them were WRXs.
That's
so
awesome.
They're starting to do a lot of those.
Yeah.
So we still have those relationships, but once we kind of solidified that, it got to the point where, okay, well, let's focus on some of the new stuff. So GR Corolla is a good example. Mm-hmm. So we formed a partnership with a company called Limit Plus One out in Chicago. They host our dyno. They host the dyno tuning that we do out there as well for the Subaru. So it works out great. I can go out there and work with them on the GR Corollas, and obviously we bought one to develop. So now that we've got a dyno cell, and now that we've got these really established partnerships, and we've got a really good basis for Subaru tunes that we do, we've been able to kind of shy away from some of the stuff that's just very difficult to manage and support, and focus more on the newer stuff. We've had time to do new platforms. So GR Corolla's been one. Yes, we picked up the Ford Raptor so that I can kind of take a deeper dive into EcoBoost tuning and understand that better for people that are interested in that. And yeah, it's been fun. Of course, spending a lot of time here on C8 tuning and all that. So as you can see me running around these last couple of days, it's a little chaotic. I had a remote GR Corolla tuning session in the morning yesterday when you were kind of when you stopped by. And then I would immediately segued into some of the testing on the C8. In the afternoon, I had to do a remote VA WRX upgraded turbo 2-fuel type tune as well, not to try to manage some emails and get some bass tunes out to people. And it's chaos, but it's fun. I've been enjoying it. And the nice thing about the overlap with Paragon and Boosted is it's all tuning and all performance, and it can all be done here. I can put on my Paragon hat and do some Paragon stuff, or take it off, put my Boosted shirt on, and I can bring Subarus in here and tune them, or put them on the dyno. All the videos I've shot with Kevin or Foster or any of them have all been done here in the dyno cell. All that testing gets done right here. So
and one of the video that we're talking about is like when you and Foster did that video, you were doing the intake shootout.
Yes,
that was here, and I still reference that video a lot when people ask me about intakes, because it's a really good, and the fact that you have that space, you can just change everything whenever you want and continue working.
Yep.
That is a big plus.
Well, in the dyno cell, a lot of companies have sent us things to test because you can't really do accurate testing without a dyno cell. You have to control the variables in the room.
Makes sense.
And if you're not changing the air in the room appropriately, you can't do that, because your first couple of runs, the room is going to be clean. It's going to be at a certain humidity and temperature level. But as the heat soak from the car kind of heats up the room that you're in, or if it's the back of a warehouse or whatever it is, you don't have clean conditions.
Yeah.
So you don't have consistency from run to run. If the power goes down on the subsequent runs with a new part, it might be because your room conditions changed.
Very interesting.
But in here, I can make sure that if I'm operating at least within a window of time, like, and the temperature outside is stable and the humidity outside is stable, my dyno room is stable. And so my starting temperatures are always exactly the same. So if we put a different intake on the car, we can validate that it changed the power because it's flowing better, not because the temperature coming into the intake has changed. So that's been important. That's why we did this. Again, it's to obviously because we need to keep the noise down, and we want to have people be able to sit here, listen to their car get tuned, and not have to do this. It's a super cool experience.
It is, actually.
Looking at your car full frame in these glass windows. And I remember when I designed this dyno cell, we told the company, I want floor to ceiling windows. And they're like, okay. And they drew me in one. I'm like, no, I want 4. And they're like, well, this is a lot more expensive. And I said, I don't care. We are using this dyno cell for R&D purposes, of course, but it's also an experience. I want people to come in here, sit down, talk to me. I strap their car down. They get to sit here and watch the tuning and see it. And it's,
and it's, even though it does reduce the noise, it still sounds really good on the outside of the glass. And actually I was actually walking around out the outside because I wanted to hear how much you can hear outside. It's not like when a dyno that's open, but you can still hear that there is a car inside just ripping it up. So it sounds really good, but I'm pretty sure you wouldn't be able to really tell what's going on. 200-300 feet away, you would think, maybe there's just a car driving down.
It sounds like it's off in the distance.
Yeah, because I was sitting here most of the time when you were in there, and I was like, it's, and you were ripping it, but it wasn't bothersome. And I know there you can kind of hear it
in the office,
like a little bit by the door. I'd say probably the door, the most you can. But I mean, it's nothing like
in the shop space.
In an actual
in the shop space, you get to hear it in a good way. If you're in the office, sometimes they'll be in here doing runs on something. I might have my technician doing like some dyno runs for somebody. I'll be working in there and I'll be like, oh, is a car making a pull?
Yeah.
Oh, I think there is a car making a pull, you know? And that was kind of the idea.
It's such an interesting, and I've always said this, like people ask me, like, should they go for an E-tune or a dyno tune? If you have something like this near you, this is one hell of an experience. Just going to the dyno is an experience, but this is actually a really, really cool. And I have never seen anything like this before. I've never experienced a dyno like this ever before.
It's a cool experience. The closest thing that I use, the reason why I chose this company's dyno cell was Real Street Performance down in Sanford, Florida. Mm-hmm. We were using their dyno for a while for a shop I was tuning for in that area. And they had this same dyno cell around their dyno jet. And it was such a cool experience to use. And it worked very well for tuning. Yeah. And so I kind of took that idea, made it fit our space, added the windows, and that's kind of where we got that from. So you're right.
Sanford, Florida?
Yeah, north of
Orlando. Used to live in Sanford.
Really?
Yeah, in an apartment. I used to deliver pizzas in Sanford.
Yeah, well, Real Street Performance is down there.
I had no idea there was anything there like that because to me, it was just trailer homes.
Yep.
For the longest time.
But so the dyno cell, it's, again, experience, functionality, and then, of course, the testing stuff like you were talking about. That's why we come do the testing here. And you made a good point. Should you get your car E-tuned or should you get your car dyno tuned? Well, obviously coming here and getting dyno tuned is a super cool experience. But all the tunes for, say, the WRX, for example, they've all been developed painstakingly, run after run after run, here on the dyno. So they're very, very well established tunes, to the point where I've had guys come in and I'll load on the first E-tune that I would normally send somebody that's tuning, and I'll make a run and I'll bring them in. I'll be like, here's the base map, here's a run, and it's like, let's say that we expect the car to be able to make 330 on a given setup. It'll be at like 328. And I'll be like, all right, I'm going to make a small adjustment. I'm going to look for a little more power, but I don't think it's going to be there because, again, this is a very well-developed map I built on this dyno. Yeah. And sure enough, I'll turn it up. We'll run it again. And we might see like a few horsepower, and I'll show them like, this is it. This is why this tune works so well, because it's been developed so well, and then we'll switch to ethanol and put that map on there. It's the same thing. The tuning process goes very quick on here because, again, the base maps have been well developed using the dyno, and then also a combination of real world road testing too.
So I'm glad that you actually mentioned that, because one of the questions does come up a lot is people always ask, because of cost, like maybe not even because of cost, they just want to know what is better. And I know technically there's no better, but just listening to what you just said right now, the difference between E-tune and being actually on the dyno, especially for you in your case, like it's that close. Like there's, people say, well, there's this misconception that tuning on the street is better because that's your real life scenario. So like, how would you answer people who ask that question?
What I usually tell people is the most important thing that you want to go after is somebody who has a lot of experience with the platform and hopefully either owns the platform or has really good access to the platform. So example, I have access to the SubiSpeed car and Kevin's car to use at my disposal. I don't own a VB currently, but like GR Corolla, I bought one. I do all my development with my own car. So you want somebody who has the car, has spent a lot of time on it, and has a lot of experience. I've said it before to people that have asked, an E-tune from an experienced tuner will beat a dyno tune from an inexperienced tuner all day long. Yep. Having a dyno or being on the dyno doesn't mean that tuner is going to have the knowledge and the experience to tune it correctly. The dyno doesn't give you this magical ability to understand how to calibrate the engine. That comes with experience. Right. So that's why you want to look for that first. Now, if you have an experienced tuner that you want to work with, you have a good relationship with, you've talked to them and you want to work with them, and they have a dyno and you can go to their dyno, that's the right answer. The guys around the Midwest or the guys around Chicago, they love to come get their WRX tuned with me in person on the dyno for the experience. Right. Everybody else out there that's in, other states or other side of the country, if they want to work with us, an E-tune is still a really good answer because, again, developed on the dyno. Yep. You're taking data logs. It's all customized. It's all dialed in for you. And if you don't have an experienced tuner near you with a dyno, that's going to be a better option than going with somebody that's inexperienced. So
yeah. Plus, there's I'm like, I always think about as like a dad when I answer these questions. I also tell people, I said, look at the cost. If you have a really good tuner that you can get a good E-tune from, that is going to be cheaper than going to a dyno. But if there's obviously the time commitment, right? If you, you know, but then if you have a good tuner, you're not doing like 7-8 revisions either. Like that's
here's a good question. So you mentioned it's cheaper to get an e-tune versus a dyno tune. And the reality is, you're, at least with us, the way we price it, you're still paying for the tune and you're still paying for my time to dial it in. The reason why dyno is more expensive is because that room and that dyno cell are extremely expensive. Yeah. And even to operate it is extremely expensive. So there's, you know, and that goes for anybody, even if they don't necessarily have this dyno cell and a dyno, you know, having somebody strap the car, you know, having the lights on, having electricity, running the dyno, it all comes at a cost. So that's why dyno tunes are more expensive. It's not the tuner in those situations is not making more money. And in fact, you know, to some degree, if you can hammer out a lot of e-tunes from the comfort of your home, you can probably make more money e-tuning than you can dyno tuning. Right. Dyno tuning takes more time. Yeah. So you certainly have to price it accordingly. But from my perspective, you know, if I'm looking at a dyno tuner and e-tune, at the end of the day, I'm making about the same amount of money on either one of them. They're just done differently. So that's why they cost more. It's not that dyno tune doesn't cost more because you're getting a better tune or you're getting more horsepower. It costs more because you're having it done in person. There's the convenience factor. You're not having to go out and take the logs on the road. It's just a show up, a one and done. You know, you get to chat with the tuner if they're there, and they can, you know, they talk to you. So there's some value there. But is the tune cheaper? No. I mean, like the tune, like is the quality of the tune less because it costs less as an e-tune from the same tuner that can do both? No. But you know, those are factors people often don't understand. They think dyno tuning is expensive for no reason. Right. I like to make sure that
that's
people
good though.
understand.
That's actually a nice, transparent way of explaining that, because this is every new person that comes into this community, they have these same questions like, well, why is this cheaper? Why is this more expensive? Is this better? I think those are the two things that always come up is like, what are the price differences? And most people think because I'm paying more, I'm going to get more. And so we've always talked about like, you know, obviously we've seen tuners out there who just e-tune that maybe that tune isn't very good, but you know, it's cheaper, you probably pay for it. But if you have somebody like you just said, like your e-tune is still really, it's about pretty much like what would happen if you bought the car over here.
I've done almost every single combination of everything on a VV WRX at this point, and I've got starting maps that reflect that. I've tested them all on the dyno, so I know exactly where I can take the car to using road logs to get it to its optimal safe power. Yeah. And if when we look at the log, if we get a bit too far for someone's local fuel and we're seeing more knock than we should be seeing, we dial it back and you're still going to be at your optimal safe power, just as if you were on the dyno. You're not missing 15, 20, 30. In a lot of cases, you're not even missing 5 to 10. You might be spot on with a dyno with a good experienced tuner, because again, they've spent the time on the dyno to develop the mapping that they're going to give you for your e-tune, check logs for, fine tune for your car, your environment, your altitude, elevation, all of it. And you're going to have something that's sometimes as close as 98 to 99% the same as a dyno tune. Yep. Again, because
and that's experience. Again, the experienced tuner will have that. Right. Because I've actually, so that stuff is really interesting. I know especially online on Facebook, there's a lot of talks about like virtual dyno. And in your experience, do you use virtual dyno a lot when you're like sending stuff to people?
A little bit. I don't make it a standard part of the process. If somebody really wants it, we'll run their logs through it, and I'll have to make sure need to make sure that your traction control's off, pick a flat road, as few bumps as possible, and all these different things, and get their tire size, because there's so many variables, like how much fuel was in your car, how many of your buddies were in the car with you, how much stuff's in your trunk. It all, you know what I mean? So I don't like to rely on it too much, because I've done back in the early days before I had a dyno available to me, or after I got one, I did a lot of virtual dyno in the old days. It's around here, it's all we had. We didn't have an all-wheel drive dyno. So I've used it a ton. I'm very familiar with it, but I'm also very familiar with how it can be manipulated and how it can be inaccurate, even if you're not manipulating it. So I don't put a lot of trust in it. I'll run it for somebody that wants to see it, and kind of, and then I'll try to preface it by saying, I think this is higher than this car would be on the dyno jet, or I think this is lower than. I won't change it or manipulate it or try to give them what they want. I'll give them what it says, but I don't necessarily trust it a ton, but it gives you something. It is it is somewhat helpful. But
it's not something I think that you should die on. Like, this is not the hill you should die on, it says on your virtual dyno.
What I will go off of is, I know, on a given setup for a given fuel type, and what I can run for boost, and what I can run for fuel, and what I can run for timing, where I can get to in someone's tune safely without seeing knock or anything that I feel needs to be pulled back. I know how much power that makes, and I can give that information to them, kind of that way. So we can, a lot of times what I'll do is, if I have dyno graphs from particular setups that match someone's setup perfectly, and I can show them this is what this car makes on the dyno with this same tuning, the same settings. So it can kind of give you an idea.
That's kind of interesting. Yeah, you would that makes you make sense, because you have so many previous logs that you've done with people. People can come in and be like, hey, because like that's another question that always comes up, that people ask me, oh, well, if I buy this intake and I buy this top mount, what can I make? Yeah. So I would, again, just refer them to their quality tuner. They should pretty much, I would imagine any tuner that has done a lot of these logs should be able to be like, okay, well, you're looking at like XYZ to XYZ with these parts, because this is generally what I've seen. So,
and I always try to give a range too. I try to give a range that's, depending on different variables, plus or minus at least 10 wheel power, because there can be little variances, again, from location to location, fuel to fuel, and all that jazz. So I can't give you one number that's the number your car makes for sure.
And the funny thing is, like, that's kind of what people want, but I think that we have to try to change that mindset, because there's no real way that you can look at a set of parts and be like, okay, yeah, 342 is probably what it's going to make. Like, it's just, I don't even think that's realistic.
More so, what's more so important, again, is just dialing it in to be.
Okay, so unfortunately the camera actually stopped recording like 20 minutes into our little chat, but we were only like 5 more minutes past that. Something Graham did mention is, we are actually going to do a legit tuner talk in the future, where we're going to talk about the dam drops, and that's something that pops up a lot on Facebook. Is people will say, oh, my dam dropped, or I don't know what's going on, is everything okay with my car? Or people are like, oh, my dams have been at 1 for like forever, so my car must be great. But there's a lot of nuances to actually what the dam does, and even myself, I don't obviously have full information on that, exactly how it works. And so Graham and I, we are going to do an actual tuner talk on that. He is super busy, so he actually had to hop back into the dyno cell to do some more dyno testing. So I'm just going to kind of walk around, check out the rest of the place, and then I got to get back to St. Louis. I can't be in Iowa forever. But overall, I'm like really thankful that Graham let me come out and do this, because I've told you guys one of the things I wanted to do this year was kind of travel and see more stuff. I don't know if you can actually hear. This is what it's actually. So what I'm using right now, I actually bought another condenser mic, like a shotgun mic, so I actually have that on top of the camera. And it sounds okay. You guys will have to let me know what that sounds like compared to the Rode. I'll probably still use the Rode for other things, but when I don't have a second mic to give to somebody, this is not a bad option. So let me show you guys let me let you hear what this sounds like from the outside.
You see, even though he's like ripping it in here, it's not obscenely loud. But if I go inside, it's really loud. And the cool thing is, like, a lot of the customers can actually just sit right there. And this is where I was sitting when I was messing around with my laptop. And I was just listening to Graham just rip this car up. And it's still loud, but it's not as loud as you think that it would be, because this is like 2-inch, I think it's like 2-inch thick glass that's on here. Now let's see if he's gonna rip it. Show you how pressurized this room is. Like I'm actually having to hold this thing back, or else this door is just gonna slam because of the pressure.
I hope you really enjoy these tour videos that I've been doing. I actually really enjoy it because I get a chance to travel around and see places I've never been to before, because I've never been to Iowa before, and meet people that I normally wouldn't see in person or just talk to online. You know, a lot of people to thank on this one. Obviously, Graham for letting me come out here and giving me his time of day, because as you can see, Graham, he's a really busy guy. You know, he's doing a lot for this for our community and for other communities as well. And of course, a big thank you to my wife, who allows me to make these trips. She's been incredibly supportive. So if you made it to the end and you want to show some appreciation, definitely put in the comments, let her know thank you for letting us all go on this journey together, because she does watch these videos and she does read the comments. So anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I will see you in the next one.